Welcome to the Real World. My name is Cameron. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Real World Podcast, episode 121. We're talking all about the best aviation movies. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Real World Podcast. Make sure you hit that like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. We are movie fanatics, so if you're a movie fan, you're in the right place. We talk about all kinds of movies here, new movies, old movies, stuff on streaming, the big physical media collection behind me. We go through that. So if you're into any of those types of things, this is the podcast for you, and this is the YouTube channel you should subscribe to. So make sure you do that. And we'll be happy to have you here. We're over 600 subscribers now. We're on our way to 700. And so we're really excited about that. This is the podcast. So this is where we kind of talk about all kinds of different topics. And Flight Risk is the new movie in theaters. So we thought it'd be a great time to talk about aviation movies, movies about airplanes or set around airplanes. Joining me for this episode is Mr. Burt. He's back. How you doing, man?
Hey Cam, what's up?
Uh, Airplanes. That's what's up.
Yes.
Yeah, we're excited to talk about this topic. It's one we haven't covered before, and so it's kind of new territory, which is going to be a lot of fun. So let's jump right in. All right, folks. Well, this is it, the Aviation Movies podcast. We're going to do a draft like we've been doing recently. If you're familiar with the podcast, we basically go our separate ways and create our top 10 lists or top 20 lists of favorite aviation movies and rank them in order from best to worst. And then when we come together here on the podcast, I don't know what's on Bert's list. He doesn't know what's on my list, but we go back and forth drafting these movies as if we're, manager of a sports team drafting players and going back and forth. So once he picks a movie, I can't pick it anymore. Once I pick a movie, he can't pick it. So that way we're going to have two totally different lists at the end of the podcast, which is going to be a lot of fun. So Bert, let's talk a little bit about how we came up with these lists. As you're looking at the topic of aviation, what was kind of running through your head as far as what movies you wanted to have on this list?
I decided to catch pretty much everything that involved aviation as a theme as well as what you see on the screen.
Hmm.
So that involved quite a lot of movies. But some, I didn't include films where the first scene or two might take place on a plane and then the characters get somewhere and then they move on to the rest of the story. So
Right.
you have to draw the line somewhere.
Sure.
Yeah. So I mean, there's not as many as we have had in some of our topics, I guess you could say.
Right.
But there's still quite a few good ones. I always
Mhm.
like unique locations in films, like
Mm,
on a boat, in
right.
space, like
Yeah.
on an airplane. I'm always going to want to see a movie that's set on an airplane.
Right.
They're not always great, but
Sure.
that's always something like, oh, what happened? Can they keep our
Hmm.
attention for 90 minutes on an airplane?
Yeah, exactly. I love giving when artists give themselves restraints like that. I think it can be
Yes. Yeah.
very good for
Uh-huh.
creativity when you kind of
Right.
have
Right.
those restraints and you have to, think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of a lot of these movies. I think it's a cool topic. I'm much the same way. I kind of just went through and looked at the movies that focused in on aviation, on pilots, on airplanes. I wanted
Hmm.
them to be set around the airplane. So a lot of these movies are very airplane centric.
Yeah.
But look, some of them are historical, some of them are fantasy, sci-fi, some of them are, there's all kinds of different types of films here that I have in this list. So I think it's going to be a really fun discussion. Are you ready to jump in?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go.
The takeoff has commenced. Go ahead and give us your number one draft pick for best aviation movies.
Okay, well, I also love movies where the president is involved, and so this is a combo because my number
Oh,
one pick, I am taking Air Force One.
yes. I knew it would be on both of our lists. Oh, it's a
Yeah,
great one.
yeah, one of those that I was just buzzing coming out of the theater when I saw this thing, and I've seen obviously numerous times since then. The great Harrison Ford, obviously in the lead, terrific as the president. I mean, what isn't he terrific in?
Right.
He's terrific in The Secret Life of Pets too.
Right.
Yeah, and this is just an terrific bad guy,
Oh, Gary Oldman, yeah. Oh
Gary
man,
Oldman,
so good.
just so sneaky and then such a force when he pounces, you know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
And so the combo of, one of the greatest actors we have, and then one of the best actors we have that's playing the bad guy. I mean,
Right.
they're perfect. The script is it's exciting. The action really builds. It's
Mm.
fun to see all the stuff about the president. I mean, I hadn't seen anything. I mean, on Air Force One
Right.
prior to seeing this movie, so we didn't
Right.
have YouTube back in 1997. So it was really interesting too to see like, oh, that's what the president does when he's on the plane. You get all that
Right.
fun stuff and the evasive maneuvers and the escape pod. All this
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
crazy stuff going on.
Right.
So I mean, it's just one nonstop thriller that I just absolutely adore.
Yeah, it is definitely one of my favorites. It was pretty high on my list, so you stole it from me. But yeah, like you said, both those lead performances are great. Wolfgang Peterson directed this. He did several other films I really like. And yeah, it's just a great kind of premise. And I was
Yeah.
watching it, I just got Escape from New York for Christmas on 4K.
Oh.
And I was like, this is kind of like the opening scene of Escape from New York. Remember when the president's plane gets hijacked and they end up crashing into New York City? And I was like, oh, yeah, that's kind of like the whole movie is about that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Right.
kind of
Right.
cool idea. But yeah, they do a great job with this movie. Like you said,
Yeah.
tense, great
Yeah.
action. I love the him, sneaking around the plane and trying to, figure out what's going on and all of it. It's really well done. So, yeah, excellent choice. Excellent
Yeah.
choice.
One more thing I'll mention about that most tense thing I think is when the president's wife, I think, and his daughter are being held,
Yes.
and it's like, what would the president do or
Yeah.
betray to save
Yeah.
his family? So it's a very
Right.
you can
Right.
kind of connect with that. You're like, wow, what
Yes.
a unique circumstance to be in.
It is absolutely. Yeah, I like movies that put characters in those difficult situations. That's really really good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, great one to start off with. Great movie. Everyone should check that one out. Great action flick from '97. Yeah, definitely one of my favorites. All right, let's jump now to my number one draft pick, which is an oldie, black and white film from 1939 from director Howard Hawks, one of my favorite directors. Stars Cary Grant and Jean Arthur. It is Only Angels Have Wings.
Okay.
This is a really interesting film. Howard Hawks, the director, was a World War One fighter pilot, and
Oh.
so he had personal experience as an aviator. And he kind of, got into Hollywood and
Hmm.
made several films about aviation. Actually,
Oh, really?
a couple of them I haven't seen, but this one I have seen, and it's fantastic. It's a really fun, enjoyable movie. There's a great kind of emotional through line to it. There's a great kind of romance. It's kind of got romantic comedy elements. It's got kind of harrowing action sequences as well. Some groundbreaking special effects for 1939. They were very, very
Oh, yeah.
impressive. Um, and it follows the daring pilots who deliver goods in treacherous mountains in South America. So it's all
Oh.
set in South America, this kind of mountain range where they're having to fly all these supplies to these villages and things like this. And
Oh.
so, yeah, they have this good mix of characters, all these pilots who are kind of they don't know what day is going to be their last, what flight is going to be their last, and they kind of live it up. And Jean Arthur comes into the story, and she has an interesting part to play. And there's a lot of great kind of witty, snappy dialogue in it, which Howard Hawks is known for. He did His Girl Friday with Cary Grant, and they did several other films together. But yeah,
Okay.
really fun, enjoyable, all around just great, entertaining movie. And it's really well done on every level. So I would highly recommend it. I think it's one of my favorite kind of from the classic Hollywood era that
Hmm.
I would highly recommend. A lot of people haven't heard of it though. Unfortunately, Criterion has this great Blu-ray edition that you can pick up. But yeah, definitely worth checking out. Only Angels Have Wings. Alrighty, well, we are on to Bert's second pick. So go ahead and hit us with the next one, Bert. What do you got?
Well, I'm already going to go with a guilty pleasure.
Okay.
This one is Red Eye from 2005.
Oh, yeah, we've talked about this before.
We have, yeah, yeah, with Twin Films.
That's right.
Yeah, and Cillian Murphy and Rachel McAdams. And this is one that I guess I'll say spoiler alert because it's kind of a fun spoil, in that you don't know that Cillian Murphy is the bad guy or one of the
Right.
bad guys in this
Right.
film. So
Yep.
it's kind of an interesting opening
Uh-huh.
as we're introduced to his character. And So this film, I'll just say, it may not be the most intellectual or it's this is just fun popcorn entertainment, and
Yep.
it's probably that and Air Force One are probably the two on my entire list that I've gone back to the most.
Sure.
So for some reason, I couldn't really feel like this went any lower than number two.
Hmm.
Just a lot of fun, and even knowing kind of what's coming next, weapons that are used by Rachel McAdams. I'll just say that
Right.
it's just still so much fun, and I just
Yeah.
Killian just kills it. As he's
Yes.
so much fun as the bad guy.
Yep.
And then Rachel McAdams, I mean, she has good chemistry with him,
Hmm.
and yeah, I just think this one actually, obviously they're aboard the plane pretty much the whole movie, but then
Hmm.
there's also a separate subplot
Right.
outside of it, so it's a little bit of a balance that I think some movies that are just on a plane have more trouble keeping your
Yeah.
attention or keeping
Sure.
it balanced well. But
Hmm.
so anyway, yeah, I've returned to this one many times, and it's one I really enjoy a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It is one that I definitely enjoyed watching. I wouldn't mind revisiting. Wasn't Wes Craven the director behind that?
I think so.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. Kind of a different type of film for him,
Yeah,
but
Wes
yeah,
Craven.
yeah, really, really good movie. Great performances. Like you said, those two leads are kind of, to me, the reason to watch because they're so engaging throughout that whole film.
Yeah, yeah.
They really give it their all. So excellent choice. Back to my list. My second draft pick is going to be another oldie but a goodie from 1965. So not quite as old as the 1939 pick. It's called The Flight of the Phoenix. This is a great film starring Jimmy Stewart and an ensemble cast. You got Richard Attenborough in there,
Oh,
Ernest Borgnine, George
hmm,
Kennedy, a lot of great big actors, big names from back in the early days of cinema. Robert Aldrich directed this, did a great job. And this is an interesting one because I kind of debated whether or not to put it on my list. It's one of my favorite movies. Like Only Angels Have Wings, I give it 5 stars. Um, but it's not so much a plane in the air because the opening scene is a plane crash in the desert.
mm,
And so they're kind of trapped here, but the plane becomes like their shelter, right? It's basically their
oh,
home that they're living in to
yeah,
survive. And
huh,
fortunately, they've got plenty of food in there and all kinds of different supplies. So
oh,
they're surviving in this plane, but obviously trying to find their way out of the desert. So how are they going to do that? How are they going to use the plane? And they kind of put their heads together and try to figure out a way to utilize the plane to get them across this desert without it flying, which obviously it can't fly anymore after the engine failure. But it's really fascinating. It's a really cool film. It was remade, I think, in 2004, 2005, somewhere around there with Dennis Quaid.
I've heard of
Um,
that one. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. No,
I've
it's
never
a
seen
solid
it.
remake. It's a
Oh yeah,
decent remake. Yeah, it's actually not bad. I still much prefer the original, but it's a pretty good remake. So this one I'm a huge fan of just for the cast. I'm a huge Jimmy Stewart fan. I like all of his movies. Action sequences and the effects and everything are really good. Again, all practical, back in before the CGI days, and just a great mix of characters. The characters they butt heads a lot. They have to learn to work together and work through their differences and everything. But they do a great job with this movie. The performances, the writing, the direction, cinematography, music, every element of it just really really works. And so yeah, just an enthralling kind of dramatic, more of a survival film that
mm,
happens to feature a plane as kind of like their main mode of survival.
yeah, yeah.
So it's really cool. It's different, but I really wanted to have that one on the list. So that's another Criterion edition, which is really cool. It actually includes this little paper plane that you can build inside the box, which is pretty
Oh,
neat.
cool.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. It says Phoenix there on the side. So yeah, it's pretty cool what they put together there. But yeah, definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it. The Flight of the Phoenix.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a movie I saw recently called Armor with Sylvester
Hmm.
Stallone,
Okay.
and it's pretty terrible, but
Oh, really?
it
Okay.
came out in 2024, and I
Okay.
like Stallone. Okay,
Yeah.
and it's about a armored car that's being chased,
Mhm.
and then it crashes, and then the two occupants of the armored car use the car as armor, so that's
Okay.
hence the
Right.
title.
Right.
It's pretty bad though. Yeah, it's
Okay.
pretty bad.
Okay. Yeah. Watch Flight of the Phoenix instead of watching Armored. All right.
Yes.
Let's move on, Bert. Now we're at your number three pick.
The next few are could shuffle a little bit. So honestly, I really got to go with a strong one here. I'm going to go with 7,500. is the name of this movie.
Yes, I just watched this last night for the first time.
Oh, okay. I'm interested in your thoughts.
Yeah.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt is an actor I really like.
Mhm.
And I don't think a lot of people even really know who he is, but he's been in
Right.
so many movies.
Yeah.
And Third Rock from the Sun. He was like a
Yeah.
little kid back then,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and had much longer hair.
Right.
7500 is a film where terrorists take over a plane. We're probably gonna have a few of those on this list. I would bet. This one is probably the best in some ways, in that this is a very small cast for the most part, very, very small set. The majority of this film takes place in the cockpit
That's
of the
right.
plane.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think, has there been a smaller movie set? Maybe Source Code. That was pretty sort of small area he's
Oh,
sitting in,
right. But that's not
but
the
I
whole
can't.
movie, though. Really? I mean,
No,
because the
yeah,
most of
yeah.
it's on that train.
Well, true. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
this, he's actually in, and it's from the perspective of that cockpit. So you see
Yeah.
other things going on through like a monitor and that kind of
Right.
thing. But
Right.
I love the uniqueness of that.
Yes.
The film is very serious. Not much
Mhm.
comedy in this one,
Right.
but Joseph Gordon-Levitt can be funny.
Yeah.
Um, and his performance though is just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost feels like they set a camera inside that cockpit and you're watching it for real.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
dark at times. I mean, it
Yeah.
really hits you in the gut at times.
Right.
So very realistic, very
Mhm.
scary. Uh, some great sound effects even and camera work
Mhm.
for being
Mhm.
in such a small space. So,
Right.
and the terrorists are really convincing. I mean,
Mhm.
they feel like real terrorists.
Right.
Thankfully they didn't bring in someone that looks like that nationality that's famous, because then
Right.
you're thinking about their films. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I
Right.
like that
Right.
too, that it's kind of unknowns for the most part.
Yep.
Um, I did feel it ends a bit abruptly. Like I almost
Mm.
wanted to go a little bit longer so we could see a
Mm.
coda.
Mhm.
But either way, great performances in this, and very moving material.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, this was pretty high on my list as well. So I'm a little disappointed you took it, but it's so good. I mean, I was really riveted the whole time. Like you said, it gets so intense. So many just difficult moments to watch, honestly, as you're
Yeah,
watching
yeah.
him deal with all these crazy things he has to deal with and things he has to do. You know,
Tough decisions.
putting exactly. I was just about to say, putting him in these situations where what can you do? Like what should you do in these situations? It's so difficult. So yeah, great performance. I love that it's all just in the cockpit. I mean that was incredible that for 95 minutes
It's not
they
boring.
it's never boring. It never gets like, oh, I wish we could go somewhere else. You're always in it. You're always right there in his shoes with him.
Yeah.
It's great. It's a great film. I agree that the supporting cast is great as well. Yeah, all of them feel like real people, not,
Yeah.
caricatures. They're all like, have different things going on with them. And so
Hmm.
yeah, it was absolutely stunning. I was really blown away by it.
Good.
I'm disappointed
Yeah.
it didn't get more attention when it came
I know.
out.
Well, yeah, I just saw it on streaming.
Yeah,
I don't know, a year or two ago,
yeah.
and it's been a while because I didn't really
Mhm.
remember exactly what happened at all. So it was almost like watching it
Right.
for the first time. I just
Yeah,
remembered that I liked it. So on
yeah.
my second viewing, I liked it just as much.
That's great.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, great movie. Definitely check out 7500 if you want some intensity. Get ready for some, like Bert said, it's not a comedy. It is a serious drama, but very compelling film. Very
Yeah.
compelling. Makes you, think about a lot of different things too, which is always cool. Okay, moving on to my third pick. I'm going to the animated realm with Hayao Miyazaki, who is, the famed Japanese animator who's behind Studio Ghibli. A lot of popular films they've created, like Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro. This is one that he did that doesn't get enough attention. Many thought it was going to be his last film. Fortunately, he's actually made, I think, two more since then. He's in his
Oh.
90s, so you never know
Oh
when his
wow.
last movie's going to be. um, but it's called The Wind Rises.
Hmm.
And this is a film, came out in 2013. And speaking of Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he does the English dub on this,
Oh,
actually.
does he?
Plays the main
Huh.
character. Yeah. Yeah, he did a
Interesting.
great job with it. He's in it. Emily Blunt and John Krasinski are both
Wow.
actors in it as well. Martin
Huh.
Short, Werner
Carpool.
Herzog, William H. Macy, Jennifer Grey, Stanley Tucci. It's got a great cast. Really, really great actors. That's the thing about Disney. I guess commissions these films or whatever you can say,
Really?
and gets English voice actors to come in and dub
Hmm.
all the lines, and releases it
Oh.
here in the United States after the Japanese audience has already seen it. And they
Hmm.
just do a great job.
Hmm.
So the performances are excellent. And it's all about Miyazaki's love for aviation. He's always loved flying and airplanes, and that's just been a kind of passion of his, other
Okay.
than animation. And so this one's interesting. It starts back in, I think, 1918 and takes us all the way through the Second World War. So it's this kind of epic journey of this character who becomes a aviation engineer. He starts designing and building airplanes for the
Oh.
Japanese. And so it's a really interesting story. There's a romantic kind of subplot that goes along with it that's really compelling as well and gets very emotional. It has just really the movie. It doesn't really feel like most animated movies that are geared more towards children. This is
Hmm.
it's actually I think rated PG-13 because there are some kind of intense images and stuff with the war and different things that happen with it. But
Hmm.
um, me and my wife were both riveted by this movie.
Hmm.
Just totally enjoyed every second of it. It's very, very well made, beautiful animation. The aviation sequences are gorgeous to look at, and it's so well done. Again, the cast is great as well. So, highly recommend it. I feel like it's one that most kids could probably watch because it doesn't get too intense necessarily, but it is,
Yeah.
I feel like, more made for an adult audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, highly recommend checking out The Wind Rises. Really unique,
Huh.
cinematic kind of journey.
Okay.
All right, Bert, we are now on your number four pick. What do you got there?
Okay, back to a more general audience friendly film. I'm gonna go with a pretty new one called Carry On.
Oh yeah, I still haven't seen this, man. I wish I had had a chance to
Ah,
see it. Yeah.
okay. I
Sorry, I
won't tell you
haven't
any
been.
spoilers
Yeah,
then.
don't spoil it, but I definitely want to check it out. I've heard a lot of good things. Actually, several people I work with have said that it's really good too. So I definitely want to carve out some time to watch it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, just end of 2024 it came out.
Hmm.
Taron Egerton, I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah, yeah, Taron Egerton. Yep.
And Jason Bateman, pretty
That's
much my
right.
favorite actor,
Yeah, yeah.
in a bad guy kind of role in this one. So that's
Right,
fun.
right.
And it's about what happens when well, I should say Taron Egerton plays a guy that is one of the TSA agents at the airport.
Okay.
And so it's I'll just say it's about what happens when he's approached and some bad stuff's going down and he gets pulled into it. He doesn't want to be pulled
Mm,
into it and he is.
right.
So
Okay.
that it's better if you don't know anything, so I'll just leave it
Sure.
at that.
Okay.
And and he's really good. Bateman is excellent as the bad guy. We don't get to see him play a real bad guy very
Yeah.
often. He
Right.
doesn't really. There's a couple times where he says something kind of snarky, and I laugh just because I think he's really funny.
Right.
But otherwise, it's a pretty straightforward, serious role. And again, this film is for sort of general audiences, so this is
Yeah.
not, this is not. It could be critically attacked a little bit, maybe. For
Sure.
instance, there's a few times in this film where I'm like, that would not have happened in real life, like those
Right.
kind of things.
Right.
So
Sure.
you gotta
Sure.
go understanding that going in.
Mm-hmm.
It,
Mm-hmm.
it's so much fun. There are a lot of twists. I
Sure.
didn't guess all of them.
Okay.
I don't usually, and just a fun, again, popcorn munching kind of film.
Yeah.
I actually watched it 2 days in a row. I watched it twice,
Oh,
2 days in a row.
cool.
That's how much I liked it. So
Yeah.
really recommend that one.
Excellent. Yeah, I definitely want to check it out. Like I said, I've heard a lot of good things. I like both of those actors, and so that's one I definitely want to check out. I've heard it. I've heard some compare it to Die Hard, like a kind of a action thrillery type of a cool
Sure. Yeah.
one
Yeah.
setting and that kind of vibe going on. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's cool. That's cool. Definitely we'll check that out. Now we're on to my number four, The Aviator. This is a
Hmm.
film from 2004, so over 20 years old now, which is kind of crazy to think about. Martin Scorsese directed it. Leonardo DiCaprio stars as Howard Hughes, famous aviator, inventor, businessman, genius, and absolute nut job as well. Very interesting
Yeah.
character, interesting guy. He's such an interesting historical figure because he did so much in his life. He got involved in Hollywood. He, like I said,
Right.
built airplanes and did all of these amazing things. Um, so it's cool to see his life on film, and it's a big movie. It's a long movie. It's got a big cast: Kate Blanchett, Kate Beckinsale, Ian Holm, John C. Reilly, Alec Baldwin, Jude
Mm,
Law, Gwen Stefani, Willem Dafoe, Alan Alda. I mean, the list goes on and on, just of big name actors that are in this, and all of them do a great job playing their characters. Kate Blanchett playing Katharine Hepburn, who was of course a huge actress back in the day, and uh, their relationship is so interesting. So that's an interesting element to it, but just the aviation sequences are really well done.
mm,
And he was so instrumental in the kind of aviation industry, I guess you could say, the development of aircraft that I had to include it on the list because I felt like it was an important one to include. And a movie I really like. I love the era of the 1930s, that kind of golden age of
mm.
cinema that it's kind of set
Yeah.
around, and that whole uh, kind of aesthetic. So definitely had to be on the list. So it made number four because I really remember it fondly. I've actually, I think, only seen this maybe one, maybe twice. So I've not watched it a ton, but I remember it very fondly. So I'd like to rewatch it again soon. But this week I was trying to watch ones that I hadn't seen, so I didn't get to rewatch this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
But I do
Yeah.
really like it. So The Aviator made my number four pick. Have you seen that
Yeah.
one?
I have. Yeah, I remember
Okay.
liking it. Again, I was trying to watch new ones, so I didn't get a
Yeah.
chance to rewatch it. But it's on my list, just down a ways,
Sure. Okay.
because
Cool.
if I haven't seen it recently and don't remember much about it, you know.
Right. Right. I hear you. I hear you. All right, Bert. We're now on to your number five, rounding out the top five here. What do you have at your fifth pick?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick this one because I want it to be kind of well-rounded, and so I'm gonna go with Top Gun Maverick.
That was my next one.
Oh, it was okay.
Good pick.
Oh yes, very well loved by most people that see it,
Yes.
and I think we talked about it before, maybe a long time ago, but I think it's a lot better than the first one. I mean, I like the first
Yes.
one; it's okay.
I agree. It's better.
Um, this one's incredible. This one has modern era Tom Cruise expectation level, like
Yeah,
with the films he
right,
releases
right.
today. Didn't
Yep.
you feel like it had that kind of feeling?
100%. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and so it's this kind of similar to the original, but just so much better in pretty much every way.
Hmm.
Um, in the first one had great special effects and camera rigs. This one I feel like had even better stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean, the aerial action is ridiculous,
it
and
is.
it's you feel like you're on a roller coaster sometimes.
Yeah.
And then Tom Cruise even he tries to reinvent himself, and I appreciate that because he could
Hmm.
just play the same thing every time.
Right.
And in some ways, a little bit, I guess he does, but I
Hmm.
feel like he tried to show some, the effects of aging and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
vulnerability in that sense.
Hmm.
Uh, I will say the music isn't quite as good. The songs,
Yeah.
I guess you
No
could say,
Kenny
aren't quite as good as.
Loggins.
Yeah, 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 exactly. So anyway, yeah, just a very intense, well written film with some great callbacks, Val Kilmer and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a great movie. Great legacy sequel. Those are very
Hmm.
popular now. Or kind of take an old franchise and bring it back. And some of them work, a lot of them don't. This one totally worked because I think they had a great story. And like you're saying, the aerial sequences, I mean, those are the actors really in those planes. That's why they're
Yeah,
reacting that
yeah,
way. It's kind
yeah.
of crazy what they put the actors through, actually.
It is.
If
It
you've
is.
watched any behind the scenes, it's pretty ludicrous, but it pays off big time. It paid off because the movie is very entertaining and very
Hmm.
well received by everyone. Like you said, everyone who sees it, I've known is liked it. So excellent choice. All right, that one's off the board. So I'm jumping down to my next one for my number five to round out my fifth pick here. It's going to be a documentary, which I don't really pick documentaries a lot. I don't
Mm,
watch a ton of documentaries. Um, my brother's girlfriend's dad
mm.
is a pilot. He
Oh.
was in the Air Force and now he flies commercial airliners. And so he's all in aviation. He's got a ton of aviation movies he let me borrow. One of them was
Mm.
this documentary I had never seen. It's called Flying the Feathered Edge, the
Oh.
Bob Hoover Project.
Oh. Okay.
So Bob Hoover uh, is hailed by most, especially in the aviation community, as the greatest pilot of all time.
Oh.
Uh, he was a World War II pilot and did some incredible things in World War II. And then he was a prisoner of war. He
Mm.
escaped in a plane.
Wow.
And then after he got out, after World War II was over, he became a test pilot. So he's the guy who was testing out all these crazy airplanes that people were designing
Oh,
putting his life on the line every time. And it's
wow.
really, really amazing. This documentary is riveting.
Hmm.
It's one of the best probably I've ever seen.
Wow.
It is Harrison Ford in here because he's a big aviation guy. You know, he's a pilot himself. And so he's
Oh,
interviewed. There's several other people interviewed.
hmm.
It's really interesting. I'm shocked this guy hasn't had a movie made about his life because I feel
Yeah.
like this guy needs a movie. Like this is crazy. The stories that he was telling and the
Huh.
people were telling about him. So if you can find this documentary, I don't know if it's streaming anywhere,
Okay.
but it is well worth checking out.
Yeah.
He's, when they're interviewing him in this movie's only 2014 account, so just over 10 years old, and he's in
Okay.
his 90s when they
Oh,
interviewed him. So he's looking back on all this, and uh, like I said, so many people are talking about him and what he accomplished and all these different things. It's really, really cool. It's a really, really cool documentary. Most documentaries to me are a little boring. This one was not boring. This was really cool. There's a lot of good footage too of him testing these planes and
okay.
all these different things. So it's not just like, talking heads the whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's really good, really good. Well worth checking out. Flying the Feathered Edge. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to find that one. I like a good doco if I can find it. There are some really
Yeah,
good ones, but
right.
a lot of them I get into, and I'm like, I don't know that I'm
Yeah,
doing 2 hours of that.
right. Yes. Yeah. Good documentary to me is they're few and far between. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely one that's worth seeking out.
Nice.
Flying the Feathered Edge. All right. What do you got at number six?
Okay. I am going with Flight Plan from 2005, the twin
Hmm.
film of Red Eye.
Yeah. Right. Right.
I mean, they're both great. The plan though is a lot more of dramatically. It's a lot more heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jodie Foster plays this mom who is flying back to America after finding out her husband has passed away. Actually, his body is on the flight,
Right.
so they're bringing it back to America. She and her young daughter. I think her daughter's like 6 or 8 years old. So the film already starts with this difficult idea that she's now thrust into single motherhood, and she just needs to get back to the States so she can take care of her affairs. The problem is her daughter goes missing on the flight, uh, and there aren't that many places you can go on the flight.
Right.
Um, so that's the premise. Speeder Sarsgaard,
Hmm.
no relation to the other Sarsgaards,
Right.
um, is really really good. Kind of
Yeah.
like Cillian Murphy's really good, and he's
Yes.
on that side of it.
Right.
And it's just the performances that really make this excel. I think you like this one better than Red Eye, if I remember right.
Yeah. It's been a while. It's been longer since I've seen it, but I
Yeah,
remember it a bit more fondly.
yeah, yeah.
Specifically because I think Jodie Foster and Peter Sarsgaard, I just remember them like going at it and just it being so
Yeah,
riveting. But I
yeah,
like both.
right. And Sean Bean is the captain. That doesn't hurt.
Right. Yes.
But so where Red Eye was more of a verging on an action film, this is much
Mhm.
more of a thriller. And Jodie Foster is terrific. Kind of underused. I don't really see her in film these days,
Yeah.
but yeah, she really makes the film. In Sarsgaard, there's some really intense scenes that it builds up to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. I want to rewatch both of those because I do remember them, but it's been so long since I've seen them.
Yeah.
Great pick. Okay, that's your six. So my six is going to be Memphis Belle. Um,
Oh.
Big fan of this movie. Came out in 1990, and it's got a cast of, just big name actors, or mostly pretty big names, especially in the 90s. They were big. Matthew Modine, Sean
Oh yeah.
Astin, Billy Zane, John Lithgow is in it as
Hmm.
well. And so it's this big ensemble cast. And what it is it's actually produced by Catherine Weiler, whose father, William Wyler, director of Ben-Hur and all kinds of other big old Hollywood movies, it's based on his film
Oh.
about this plane, this bomber, B-17 bomber, known as a flying fortress, called Memphis Belle, and it was a real plane.
Oh.
Now,
Oh.
the characters are fictional. So these
Hmm.
aren't actors playing real people, but the bomber was a real bomber that, you know, went on its last mission in 19, I think 44, World War II. Um, and so the original film was a documentary. This film is a kind of fictionalized narrative film about, the
Yeah.
bomber. And so it's really good though. The characters are great. They each have very distinct personalities. Um, and they kind of can't stand each other, they're like a bunch of
Oh.
brothers living in, the same
Uh,
small space, and so they get on each other's nerves a lot and make fun of
gotcha.
each other. So it's got some humor in it for sure. But then it's got some, really harrowing moments as well, real drama there too. So it's great. It's really good. It really shows
Hmm.
you what it was like for these guys in World War II on this bomber. Very, tight quarters, a
Hmm.
lot of claustrophobia, but um,
Almost like a sub, huh?
yeah, yeah, very much like a sub kind of, and the fighter planes coming in, and then having to fend them off and
Oh.
just make this last bomber run. Then they can go home as long as they make it through
Oh.
this last run. That's
Yeah.
kind of what
Yeah.
it's all about. And so it's really good. It's really intense. Really,
Hmm.
really just entertaining though to watch. It's not tense all the way throughout. You kind of get to know them on the ground first, then you see them go up, and most of the movie is in the air with them on this bombing run. But all very well done, and for the '90s, I think it was pretty good special effects too. It held up pretty well. I didn't really nothing really took me out of the movie, and I think that has a lot to do with the direction and the cast. And so few of these are made. There's more movies I feel like about fighter pilots, than the
Hmm.
bomber pilot guys and those whole
Yeah. Yeah.
crews. So it was unique, and I like that. So I definitely recommend Memphis Belle. It was one that I hadn't heard a ton about, but I'm really glad I watched it. And so yeah, made the top 10 there.
Nice. I haven't seen. I gotta check that one out.
Yeah, yeah, I think you would enjoy it. Okay, we're on to Bert number 7. What do you got there?
I'm gonna go with United '93, directed by Paul
Mm,
Greengrass.
yes,
Came out just 5 years after 9/11,
right,
and it's the sort of real-time account of what happened aboard Flight 93, which is the one that crashed into Pennsylvania,
right.
into the ground, I should say.
Hmm.
But the first two acts of the film also, you see the control tower, or the
Mm,
guys that direct the flights, and
yeah.
you see kind of what they went through trying to steer all four of those planes
Hmm.
and dealing with misinformation about other planes potentially being
Right,
hijacked.
right.
So it's very intense throughout. What I really enjoy, if this had been a fictional movie, I probably wouldn't be nearly so much about it,
Sure.
but the use of real transcripts, real dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
They also, they you feel like you're on that plane and you're in that
Mm.
situation. So when a film can, put you there and make you feel nervous and that kind of
Yeah.
thing, I think it really succeeds like that. And that final act when you're basically just aboard Flight 93 as it's going down and you're seeing people phone their relatives and telling them they love
Mm-hmm.
them and because they're not sure they're going to survive and
Hmm.
they pull from real transcripts. These are real
Yeah.
conversations. So
Right.
it's another one that's pretty tough
Yeah.
to watch.
Yeah.
And then we know from an audio recording what happened in those final seconds right before it went down, and they build up to a similar type of. You get to kind of see what that possibly looked like,
Hmm.
and why people yelled out certain things, and
Right.
so just very intense. Another one that's kind of tough to watch, but I just
Yeah.
feel like it's so well done, and I love the historical aspect of it.
Hmm.
And as an American, you got to like Flight 90,
Oh,
or sorry,
sure.
United 93 is the title, not
Right.
Flight 93. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
I remember seeing this in theaters as well.
Oh, hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. When it came out, I was fairly young, and yeah, it definitely
Mm,
left an impact on me. So
yeah.
excellent choice. Excellent choice. Yeah. Really, really good movie. Well made. Yeah. Greengrass. He's such a great director, and he really, really did a great job with that one. So yeah, excellent choice. My number 7 pick is another one that's loosely based in real history. It's called The Great Waldo Pepper.
Oh,
This is from 1975.
oh,
This
okay.
film, directed by George Roy Hill, stars Robert Redford as Waldo Pepper. And he was
Oh,
sort of an
okay.
amalgamation of two guys who existed
Oh,
way back in the early days of aviation. We're talking like 1910s, 19
oh,
around World War I era. And so um, around that time, there were these guys who, became pilots either in the military or just kind of for entertainment purposes, basically. It was like, what are we going to do with these planes now? We're obviously going to use them for war, but can we use them for other things? And this guy was kind of just an
Mm,
entertainer, and he would go around to random places out in the country and land his plane in some field and say, hey, 50 cents for a ride or whatever. And, he would give him a ride up in a
interesting.
plane. This is before, FAA regulations or anything like
Yeah.
that. So it's kind of the Wild West of aviation. And it's really cool, though. It's a really interesting story. Great movie, well made. Susan Sarandon's in it as well, who I really like, and she's plays a great character in this. And so yeah, it's really cool to see what aviation was like back then, what the world was like, how people were
Hmm.
reacting. I mean, people were just enamored with airplanes.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool to get that kind of perspective. We so take them for granted now. It's like we fly
Yeah.
on them.
Yeah.
Most people fly them. A lot of people fly them every week or whatever for work or,
Hmm.
or whatever it may be. So it was really cool to get a different perspective on it with this movie and see these incredible aerial stunts. I don't know how they
Oh
pulled
yeah.
some of them off. I'm assuming some of them had to be on the ground with wind machines, maybe. I don't know. I don't really
Hmm.
know. Some of the wide shots are obviously real planes, but I don't know how they did some of these. It still kind
Wow.
of baffles me. And yeah, it's really, really well made. It's really interesting to see. You kind of actually see how the FAA came about in a way, because these guys
Oh
were doing
yeah.
things that were way too dangerous and
Sketchy.
putting all kinds
Yeah.
of people in danger. Um, so it's really, really cool. It's a really unique movie. Like I said, based in real history, not on necessarily a real figure, but kind of an
Yeah.
amalgamation of real figures. And Redford, he's one of my favorites. I think he's a great actor.
Yeah. He's
So
great.
it was really
Yeah.
cool to see this one from kind of earlier in his career. So yeah, The Great Waldo Pepper, if you can find it, it's one that I had a hard time finding. It was on Netflix for a little while. I think they already taken it off though.
Hmm.
But really enjoyed it. So definitely check out that one if you can.
Hmm. Okay.
Bert, it's on your number eight now, our last three. So what do you got at number eight?
Going with the executive decision.
Oh yeah, I like this one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
Yeah.
1996, and this is another hijacking film.
Right.
Again, this is a lot more formulaic than
Hmm.
some of the other films we talk about. But
Sure.
Kurt Russell obviously in the lead. Steven Seagal in a brief part
That's right.
is good. Halle Berry as a flight attendant.
Right.
John Leguizamo. This might have been the first film I saw him in, and
Mm.
I really liked him, and I'm
Yeah.
not surprised his career kind of took off, you know.
Right. Right. Sure.
And then there's also some great roles. Oliver Platt and Joe Morton
Yeah.
get some great stuff in there with trying to defuse a bomb and that kind of thing. And you got a little bit of everything in this movie. You got a little bit of stuff on the ground at first to set it up,
Mhm.
but then you got these characters that they didn't start on the plane, but they get on the plane, and it's kind of hard to
Right.
explain. And then almost Die Hard style, right? They try to.
Yeah.
This is probably the first Die Hard on a plane setup,
Right.
maybe. I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah.
But the bad guys don't know they're there, so they're in the events and stuff like this, and they
Right.
try to put together a sneak attack,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's just a lot of fun how it comes together,
Right.
and so yeah, it's one I've seen quite a few times.
Yeah. Definitely a fun action thriller.
Yeah,
I've seen. It's a fun one. Yeah. Definitely worth checking out if you're into those type of actiony, like you said, Die Hard on a plane, basically kind of
yeah.
concepts. That's a good one to check out for sure. Cool. All right. My number eight is going to be a film that I've seen many times. Probably one of the first Blu-rays I bought. Came out around the same time as the PlayStation 3 when I first started my Blu-ray collection. It's called Flyboys.
Oh,
And this is World War One.
oh,
This is
okay.
this is a true story. These guys are playing real characters about it's the first American fighter pilots ever. Before America actually even joined the First World War, these
Hmm.
guys flew overseas and joined the what is it called? The Lafayette Escadrille, the 124th
Oh,
French Air Squadron.
oh.
And so this has James Franco in it as the lead character,
Hmm.
and also has Jean Reno, who we both like. We've talked about him before. Great
Who's
French
that?
actor, Jean Reno.
Oh, Jean Reno. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Really like him. He's kind of the commanding officer, and he
Okay.
does a great job in this. So really cool movie, really well made. You really get the sense of camaraderie between these characters, and you kind of grow to like them, and you kind of learn their kind of backstories, where they each come from, and why they're there, and they all have different reasons. And again, of course, they butt heads a lot too, but eventually learn to kind of work as a team, and it's really good. It's really good. It deals with a lot of different issues, some social issues at the time, as well as just war, life in war, and there's actually a really good romantic subplot as well, which I feel
Oh,
like a lot of movies try to do, and it usually kind of fails. This one I think really works. Both the actors do a great job, and it's they're very personable, and so yeah, I would highly recommend this. 2006, this came out. Again, not a ton of World War One movies out there generally, anyway, but even
oh,
fewer, I feel like, about these kind of pilots who were the first wartime pilots, fighter pilots.
right,
So
right.
definitely worth checking out. Really good special effects. They hold up pretty good. The dogfights are pretty intense and look good. So yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out Fly Boys if you can.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that one.
Yep, it kind of went under the radar. It's another one of those. So um, all right, Bert, last two picks. What are you gonna put at your number 9 slot?
Well, I had a couple Tom Hanks films that I was batting around, and I think
Hmm.
I'm gonna pick for my number nine, Sully.
Yeah, good pick.
Yeah, and Sully, I really enjoy the casting. I like Tom Hanks with Aaron Eckhart. Like I feel like
Yes.
they come across. I mean, very we know them very well, especially Tom Hanks,
Right. Right.
and they feel like they really embody those parts.
Yes.
They just seem to play well off each other, I
They
guess you could
do.
say.
They do.
And so Hanks, he's played many real life people,
Mhm.
and he's I enjoy you do he does get into the character of someone that's he knows his stuff. So if one guy was
Yeah.
going to be in this situation, he's the guy, and you like to
Right.
see someone who's an expert at
Yep.
something do that expert thing under
Right.
pressure.
Yes.
So
Yes.
very well executed,
Yeah.
and so it's pretty intense at
Hmm.
times, this film, and it's also interesting to see in more detail what really happened. Because I
Right.
kind of remembered the incident,
Uh-huh.
but I don't really want to watch a documentary about it. I'll probably watch Sully every time.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, I'd rather watch Sully for sure. Because Clint Eastwood directed that, and he's known for getting very authentic. Like he really wants to
Yeah,
know the
yeah,
the details, and he's very good about that. So you don't have to worry about it getting too Hollywoodized like a
yeah.
lot of the true stories get.
Right,
And
right.
so yeah, that's great. That's a great movie. I really like that movie as well. Yeah, playing a real life figure, I feel like, is so much harder because not only like because the real life Sully, I mean, he was like interviewed by all kinds of people. Like we kind of
Hmm.
knew who was and
Yeah,
what he
yeah,
sounded like and his mannerisms. So I feel like it's so much harder to kind of recapture that. But Hanks does a great job with it. And
yeah,
yeah, it's the that landing on the Hudson, that whole sequence is really well done too.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, great
Amazing.
movie, great pick. Yep. Only two left. Well, my next pick is going to be a film, another war film about the Forgotten War, which is the Korean War.
Mm.
It's a movie called Devotion. This just came out in 2022,
Oh,
so it's not very old. Glenn Powell from Top Gun Maverick, he played
hmm.
Hangman in that, and Jonathan Majors, a
Oh,
star in this, and they do a great job. J.D. Dillard directed it. I think it was only the third movie he'd ever directed, young director, and they do a great job. It's another true story. These are two real guys. Tom Hudner and Jesse Brown fought in the Korean War. And it's a really compelling look at not only that war, which again, it's called the Forgotten War because most people don't remember it. It's kind of gone by the wayside, but it's really good. It's a really good look at these, aviators who are flying these, planes and doing all these incredible missions that were extremely difficult and very dangerous. Um, and I just kind of like to bring attention to it just because not only is the movie really good, I think it's a little too long. The movie's like, it's about 220 minutes, I think. I think it could have been shaved down a little bit to be a little tighter, but the runtime is utilized well, I guess you could say, because they get into their personal lives as well as the war.
oh,
And so, you come to really care about them a lot more as they go on these crazy missions. So I think it's
yeah.
really well done. It obviously it deals a lot with prejudice during the time. But these guys were pretty incredible. I mean, they're, the true sense of what a wingman is, both in life and in
Yeah.
the military. I mean, these
Huh.
guys really had each other's back at every step of the way as they were dealing with all these different things, both at home and abroad. So really like it. I think it's really well done. The 4K is great, by the way. If you can find this cheap, I mean, I would highly recommend just grabbing it just because of how good it looks. The movie looks
Hmm.
fantastic. The aviation sequences are stunning. A lot of them with real planes, most of them actually with real planes. So
Huh.
um, definitely recommend Devotion. It kind of it's another one that I feel like didn't get a ton of attention when it came out just a
No.
couple years ago, and it's well worth looking at because it's just a solid movie about again a kind of unknown time in history.
Right, right. Yeah, I feel like Vietnam got all the attention after that, so people
Exactly.
stopped
Yeah,
talking about the Korean War.
right. World War II gets a ton of attention, and then they kind of skip Korean War, go straight to Vietnam.
Yeah.
But that's the way some things go sometimes. But yeah, that's one that's definitely worth diving into. This is it, Bert. Last pick. Best aviation films. What is it going to be your number 10?
I'm gonna round it out with another guilty pleasure,
Okay,
and
go
this is
for it.
gonna be the movie called Plane, Plane,
Oh,
from
sure. Yeah.
2023,
Right,
Gerard
right, right.
Butler.
Yep.
Yeah, this is an action film. He plays actually a an airline pilot,
Right.
but he's apparently equipped to deal with more than just flying a plane, because we got some intense stuff in the air, and then when we get on the ground, there's some actually maybe even better action scenes on the ground.
Right.
So it's one I've only seen it once. I need to rewatch
Hmm.
it, but I just remember liking it a lot, and it went by so fast. I think it's only like an hour and a half long, and it just I was like, where's the rest of this? Like I just wanted more,
Right.
and so that's always a good thing to get take from a movie. But
Sure.
yeah, I really enjoyed Plane.
Yeah, yeah, I did see that one. Pretty good action movie. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty solid. It was different. I liked that it was
Hmm.
some on the plane, then some on the ground, and
Yeah,
there was some
yeah,
interesting character dynamics there. Mike Coulter, I think, is the co-star. He's an actor I
yeah,
like. I've seen
yeah.
him
He
in a
was
couple
good.
things. And so, yeah, yeah, good pick, good pick, good pick to round out your top 10 there. Now we got to round up mine. I'm going to do a guilty pleasure too, because this is a movie that I feel like it's lambasted for no reason. It should be in our next Defending Bad Movies podcast, I feel like.
Oh,
I feel like I can defend this. I'll give my thoughts on it now, briefly. Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow.
oh, I have not seen this.
Okay, so this came out in 2004.
I've heard bad things
Um,
about this though.
yeah, 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 yeah. A lot of people don't like it.
Ah,
Jude Law,
yeah.
Gwyneth Paltrow,
Hmm.
and Angelina Jolie are all in
Mm.
this. And what this movie is, it it was based on this short film this guy made,
Oh.
um, who is I think it is, yeah, he ended up directing the movie, Kerry Conran, and he's a big fan of, like me, these old 30s pulp serial films like
Mm.
Commando Cody, Flash Gordon, Lone Ranger, like all those kind of
Yeah,
superhero-y type, action adventure guys.
yeah.
And so his goal was to kind of recreate that for a modern audience and utilize CGI. So this is a film entirely shot on blue screen,
Is it? Oh, okay.
entirely shot on blue screen, and
Hmm.
it's got a really cool look. It really recaptures that kind of soft 30s vibe. It's not black and white. It is color, but it's muted. It's kind of, desaturated.
Hmm.
And it's just so much fun. This movie, he's a sky captain because he's a pilot. Obviously, he's got this plane, but the plane has all these cool gadgets on it. Like it's got these cables that shoot out and got
Oh,
all these different
that's
guns
cool.
and stuff on it. It's also a submarine, like it can do all this cool
Oh,
stuff.
huh.
And so he's having to kind of save the world. These huge robots attack New York City. And so
Oh,
he kind of comes in and saves the day. And then he has to kind of unravel like where did these come from? Who's behind all this? And so it becomes a kind of cool mystery film. Gwyneth Paltrow's his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend. She's a
mm.
reporter, so she's kind of like Lois Lane in some ways, and so she's along for the ride. And then Angelina Jolie's kind of like another kind of ex-girlfriend he had, and she's got
Oh,
this whole kind of other thing going on. And so it's a lot of fun. It's a really cool kind of just throwback adventure story.
okay.
It's kind of silly. It's kind of it's very sci-fi. There's a lot of
Yeah.
weird ideas in it, but It's a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun watching it.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if people just didn't really get the CGI thing at the time or why it wasn't well
Yeah.
received, but I think looking back on it, um, it's really good. It's really fun,
Hmm.
especially if you know what kind of movie you're getting into.
Yeah.
Um, it really works. So I'm a big fan of this. Not a lot of people are, but I really like Sky Captain. I think it's a fun movie. So that's my
Yeah.
last pick. That's my number 10.
Yeah, I still remember the look of it from the trailer. I can still kind of remember
Yeah.
bits of it from years ago.
Yeah, it's very, very unique looking movie. So
Hmm.
that's it. I think we both have great lists. They're quite different, but I think they're really good. They're representative of this kind of subgenre, I guess you could say, of aviation films. Do you have any honorable mentions? I've got several that I didn't get to talk about. I want to mention briefly, but I want to give you a chance to go first.
Yeah, why don't I maybe throw out three and then you can throw out three?
Yeah,
How's that sound?
cool. Yeah, that'll work.
Some that just barely didn't make the list. Well, Die Hard 2. That's one that I super enjoyed this back in the day. It
Uh,
hasn't held up that well,
yeah,
unfortunately,
I
and
agree.
places where some of the acting's not from Bruce Willis, but some
Hmm.
of the acting's not the best.
Hmm.
But it's fun. Nonstop is a Liam Neeson movie. I really like
Oh
him in
yeah,
these most of these action films he does. All
right.
set aboard a plane, terrorist
Hmm.
situation. Well, he doesn't know who the terrorist is. He's
Right.
the guy's texting him. I really enjoy this film. I just felt
Okay.
like some of the other ones that are similar to that were a little better.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Then Con Air, that's a classic one
Yep.
involving planes.
Yep.
It's some great stuff there. Some great lines in that one
Right.
from Nick Cage.
Yes.
Great cast. I don't know how many that was, but go ahead and throw out a few of yours.
Yeah, I know we both like this actress, Chloe Grace Moretz.
Oh
She's in
yeah.
that movie Shadow in the Cloud. Have you watched that yet?
No, what's that?
This is cool. This was really close to making my list. I had a hard time not including it. It's World War II.
Hmm.
She sneaks aboard a bomber.
Really?
And
Hmm.
yeah, and she's got this bag, like what's in the bag?
Oh.
And so you don't know what's in the bag. She's on
Oh.
on this plane hiding out. They find her. It's an American plane. They
Yeah.
find her and they're trying to unravel this mystery of who is she? Why is she here? What's in the
Okay.
bag? What's going on?
Oh.
And
Yeah.
then out of nowhere, this weird element. I'm not gonna spoil. I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Don't
try,
tell me
try to
because I
keep
want to see
things
this.
vague.
Yeah.
But something weird comes in to the
Okay.
story, and you're like, okay,
Is it
what's going
aliens?
on?
Is it
I'm not.
aliens?
It's not aliens. It's not aliens. I can confirm it's not
All
aliens.
right.
I'm not going to give you anything else though. You
All
just got to
right.
go watch it. I think you'll
Yeah.
enjoy it. It's very
Cool.
unique. It's very different,
Yeah.
but it's all on this bomber, the whole movie.
Okay.
So
Oh wow.
yeah, that was a tough one to not include. So I really
Hmm.
like that. Porco Rosso, another Studio Ghibli movie.
Oh.
It's Italian for red pig.
Oh.
It's about a pilot who's like the best pilot in the world. Like it's I think right after World War One, and he's voiced by Michael Keaton in the English
Oh.
dub. Does a great job playing the character. But he was cursed. Something in the past happened. He was cursed, and he now looks like a pig. So he looks like a pig, but he's a man. He's a pig man
What?
who can fly planes.
Oh.
It's
Okay.
a weird
Huh.
idea,
Huh.
but the movie is actually really good, and it's really kind of sweet. Like him and this
Okay.
character have a really cool relationship. There's some
Okay.
more beautiful air aviation sequences. Very strange idea. I know it sounds bizarre, but it's actually a really really cool movie. So that was one, and then the last one I'll mention, well, actually, let me mention two more. One is this another documentary National Geographic put out. It's only like 45 minutes, so that's why I didn't include it. But Harrison Ford narrates it. It's called Living in the Age of Airplanes.
Oh.
And it kind of takes you through the history of aviation and
Hmm.
gives you just a new appreciation for the existence of airplanes.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It was shot across all seven continents, too.
Oh wow.
So it's really, really gorgeous to look at, as
Huh.
most National Geographic documentaries are. But yeah, that's worth checking out, and it's not very
Okay.
long. And then the other one I was going to mention was Blood Red Sky. This is a horror movie set on an airplane.
Oh.
Um, I don't really want to say much more even than that because there's kind of a reveal that happens with one of the characters that makes it.
But it's pretty good.
Oh yeah, it's pretty
Nice.
good.
Nice. I
It's
got to see that.
intense. It's pretty
Yeah.
bloody.
Okay.
But it's a really good one. If you want a horror-esque airplane
Yeah.
movie, that's definitely the
Right.
one to go to.
Okay. Okay.
You got any more?
Um, yeah. I'll mention Pearl Harbor. Is
Yeah.
one that I mean, I think I give it 3 stars. Like, there's a lot of it
Right.
I like, but there's a lot of it that I just have problems with.
I agree.
I gotta mention The Terminal, with Tom
Oh
Hanks.
yeah,
Such a
right.
fun,
Hmm.
light film that he has
Yep.
his accent the whole time and everything. I've
Right.
seen that one a couple times.
Yeah.
And then finally, a film that probably is better than any film on my list, but I have reasons why it's not on it, and that's Dunkirk.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. Yeah, I thought about that one too. I felt like the aviation scene is just part of it and not the focus.
Yeah,
That's why
that
it
is
didn't make my list.
for sure. Yeah, I mean it's a big part of it too, but
Hmm.
yeah, I saw it once. I thought it was
Hmm.
really impressive.
Hmm.
I don't have the knowledge of that. I need like a historian to sit next to me in my
Right.
ear and say, "Here's what's going on."
Right, right,
And
right.
so I will be seeing it again. I mean, it's very well made, obviously, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't really. I mean, sorry to say, I don't really understand all of it. You know?
Yeah, it's one that definitely requires multiple watches, almost like Tenet. Not quite to the extent of Tenet, I think,
Yeah,
but I think
yeah.
on watching it again and again, you get it. Oh, you're like, oh, now I understand, like, because it is all different, like timelines and things, and it's
That
Nolan,
too.
right? It's
That
like
too.
Nolan's whole thing of like messing with
Yeah,
time. But it's really good. It actually,
yeah.
I think when we did our Nolan podcast, it ended up being my number one Nolan film because I just
Yeah, I
think
think it
it's
did. I think
so
it did.
good. The
Yeah.
more I've watched it, it's one of those, like
Hmm.
several of his, the more I watch it, the more I like it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Right.
good one. All right, I've just got a couple more. The
Go
kids
ahead.
love planes. Yeah, that's a fun
Oh,
one. I actually really
okay.
like it. I think it's really fun. So I'll mention that briefly. Red Tails. This one was another one that was pretty close to making it about the Tuskegee Airmen, the first all-black
Oh.
fighter squadron in World War
Oh, that's
II.
cool. Uh-huh.
Very well made. George Lucas produced this.
Oh, wow.
So it's Lucasfilm, so it's Ireland. The effects are phenomenal. Like the
Hmm.
aerial dogfights here are probably better than any other World War II film that I've ever
Yeah.
seen.
When did that
Um,
come out?
2012 it came out.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's been a
Nice.
minute. So that one I'll definitely mention. Strategic Air Command is one I just watched yesterday. Another one with Jimmy Stewart. I forgot to mention he
Oh,
was also a World War II pilot.
really?
Jimmy Stewart
Oh,
was. Yes, yes,
huh.
yes. He served in World War II as a bomber pilot, went on tons of
Man.
missions. And so he had real combat experience. And so he made this movie in 1955 called Strategic Air Command, which is a real thing that they kind of branch
Oh.
of the Air Force that they kind of created to prevent another world war kind of thing. And so that's a pretty good one. It gets into his domestic life. He's just been married, but then he gets pulled back in, and so that
Hmm.
whole relationship, and then all these different things that he has to deal with. So Strategic Air Command, I was really impressed by. I really like
Hmm.
that. And then I like Flight with Denzel Washington. I think that's a
Yeah, I
really
didn't
good
love
movie.
that.
You
I thought it
didn't?
was just
Yeah.
okay. It was okay.
Okay. Yeah, I really
Yeah.
liked his performance in it. I thought it was really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, he's
I
always
want to,
good.
yeah, he's always great. And so that's Zemeckis too, who I like a lot. So
Oh.
I would watch that again if you get a chance. And then, of course, if you're going for comedy, we haven't mentioned any comedies, I don't think. Airplane, of course. Airplane is hilarious. I love
Yeah,
Airplane.
yeah.
Those guys are really funny. They made a lot of funny movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it for mine. You got any more?
Nope, that's it. But it is
Okay.
true that we don't have any comedies other than that one.
It's
That's funny.
true. It's
That
true.
is funny.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, that's it for our aviation podcast. I hope you had a fun time listening. We had a fun time putting these lists together. Let us know your favorite aviation films in the comments. We want to know what the best aviation films are in your opinion. Whose list do you like more? Do you like Bert's list? Do you lean towards those? Do you lean towards my list? Let us know in the comments. We want to have a conversation with you about all these films. That's what we do here at The Real World. We're all about cinema. So let's have a conversation about it. Make sure, again, that you hit that like button. That helps us a ton. Make sure you comment down below. Make sure you share it on social media with your friends. And if you haven't, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos. Bert, we really appreciate you being here again. It's been a minute. We're
Yeah.
again, going to two podcasts a month, which I think is really going to be helpful because it gives us more time to jump into these movies and dive into them a little bit deeper, which
Yeah.
is cool. So yeah, thanks again for joining me.
Yeah, thanks. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all again. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next time right here on The Real World.